Good day and welcome to this week's edition of Tourismus Namibia, where we bring you a couple of topics and also destinations. And then obviously right at the end of the show, we come to the point. My name is Frank Steffen, as you can see on the screen there, and I'll be leading you through this show. First up, we obviously have topics. Yeah, topics it is, right on. And the first thing I thought I'd just bring under your attention is H.O.R.N, H-O.R.N. It basically stands for Help Our Rhinos Now. Quite a nice little initiative because they're basically calling for assistance and donations. And so I've just enlarged them a bit. If we look at the next photo, I hope you can still read it. It basically just says, we H.O.R.N, NAM, the rhino owners and custodians in Namibia would like to inform the public that a substantial reward has been paid out to farm workers and anti-poaching units. So it goes on to basically say that they've paid more than 100,000 in terms of rewards to various people. And they are again now offering another 100,000 for the case that was recent at Farm Distenbroek. So this is clearly, the previous ones were further up in the north, but in January, but they were solved because of the help. And so what they've done is they've actually given their bank account details and whatever. Here you can see it more clearly on the bottom side. And so clearly you can speak to Jaco Miller. Some of you might remember we had his farm on one of our shows a couple of months ago. So, like they say, rhino poaching has escalated all over Namibia in the past 18 months, and this poses a real and critical threat to the Namibian rhino population's well-being and future survival. And this is really a big issue, and they clearly also give some detail on the bottom. So if you need more of it, I suppose you'd just put it on pause quickly and just enlarge the picture or whatever. But the point is, it's basically H.O.R.N, as I said, stands for Help Our Rhinos Now. So quite an important initiative that's coming up in Namibia, because we've had a growing problem in terms of rhino poaching in general. Right, then the next item we've got, I actually made a note, is Swakopmund. That's obviously a German word, but it basically refers to a little railway shed that has been standing in Swakopmund, becoming worse and worse. The weather obviously took its toll on that shed. And you can see it was along the old railway line as it came from inland and going in towards town to the left, where the old station is, which is now obviously an entertainment center and hotel. But that shed was simply left out there it was left over to nature to basically decay. And now if you look at it, there's a Mr. Herbert Scheer. He sent me these photos and said to me, this old shed is now getting a new face. And really quite a nice little effort that they've made there. They're obviously still busy with that. You can see they're clearly reviving this old building. I tried to get hold of them. Unfortunately, I have not been able to do so yet, but I thought I'd just share that anyway, because you can clearly see this is a old building. And if you go onto the internet, unfortunately, I only could find photos that had copyrights on, so I wasn't able to use them and show you. But on the old photos of Swakopmund, you can clearly discern the shed. And so this thing really must be older than at least 120 years. So it's really quite an old item, I'd say, because if I remember correctly, the railway line, the first railway line, was built very close to the turn of the century, between 1800s and 1900s. Anyway, those are our topics for today. Up next, we've got destinations. Yeah, and today on the destinations, we've got Greenhill Chalets, and they're found in Grootfontein. So if we look at the map here, you can see it's sort of on the left, I indicated where the road leads to Combat and or Tsumeb if you turn north. And then on the other hand, the main road that basically leads through Grootfontein as you go up to Rundu. So when you've almost reached the big sports stadium there, which you can clearly make out that green spot. Just across from it, you have the Greenhill Chalets. There on the right, you see the outline of the sports field. So it's just across from that. And this, actually one should say, I think it is a total service station that's just across from this Greenhill Chalets. And my colleague, Elvira Hutton, she actually spoke to the owner, and as you can see, quite a nice little place to go there, and something different altogether. I actually like their little chalets that they've got. It's got a typical feel as you would have up in Novamboland and Kavangoland, where you've got these tiny little chalets or huts, I would almost call them. There must be a photo there somewhere here. You can actually make them out a bit. So quite a nice little place to be. And if you have an overnight, you need an overnight solution up in the north, you might just want to try that one. But have a look at the video.
Ilian, thank you so much for receiving me today. We are here in Grootfontein. Would you please introduce yourself and tell us about the owners of Greenhill Chalets?
Okay, well, thank you for visiting us. My name is Helene Erasmus, originally from Grootfontein, born and raised. This is actually my home that I was raised in, where we stayed when growing up. It's a family-owned business. I'm just the manager, taken over from my mom recently after COVID. And yeah, it's a small guest house in Grootfontein. And yeah, I'm the friendly face that'll be meeting you when you arrive.
That's really amazing. We are meeting here on a lovely day and it's raining outside. Grootfontein has a lot to offer, but Greenhill Chalets also has some special offerings. Maybe tell us about that.
Well, it started as just accommodation when my mom started the place. So she built 6 chalets on the outside of the main building. And then obviously we have this dining hall, which is actually / restaurant that I'm basically turning it into. Most of the years it was only a guest house, and the guests that were booked in here could eat here. But I'm trying to go the public way, just to open it up to the public, and for them also to come and eat here for breakfast, lunch and dinner. So that's quite new actually. Nobody would probably know about that. So we're starting with the marketing and those kind of things. So we have 6 chalets. Some of them with double beds, some of them with twin beds. Obviously for business travel, it'll be for 2 people, twin beds, or if you're a couple, it'll be a double bed. So, and it's just a basic room with the bed, the ensuite bathroom, air conditioning, TV, those type of things. And then we expanded a bit within the last couple of months. We built a small putt-putt, 9-hole putt-putt miniature golf course. So that's just for, you know, if you want to come and have some dinner or lunch and you bring the kids along, they have something to do. You know, in Grootfontein, it's quite a small town. We don't have a lot of activities, so that's just something that we decided to add on to our offering. Yeah, so that's it.
That's quite beautiful. So, you know, a really beautiful restaurant, beautiful rooms, and, you know, the putt-putt really, really exciting, especially for the kids. Yeah, I'm even excited about that. So, would you maybe explain where you are located and, yeah, which people typically visits you?
Okay. Well, we're conveniently located on the main road, just next to the main road. As you enter from Rundu, going back to Otavi, Windhoek, So, and we're opposite the Total Service Station on the main road. So, as you enter or exit to Rundu, you will find us very easily. We have a big wall advertising our place with a name and everything, so that's quite easy to find. Typically, we have a lot of Namibian travelers. Obviously, we're halfway to Katima, so it's nice and convenient. If you're going from Windhoek to Katima or from Zambia, we had visitors the other day from Zambia going to Swakopmund, which is quite a long way. You have to do like 800 k's and then you have to stop over and sleep. So then conveniently, we are just situated here next to the road.
Right, and that was Greenhill Chalets. And then as a second item, I've brought you something different. My argument simply being we've quite often here spoken about 10 degrees south. Now, the idea of 10 degrees south and why we promote it is we feel that we as Namibia are part of the Southern African community, and more or less 10 degrees south as latitude is where I indicated that red line is the countries that we feel should be part of our bigger aim, especially with the expo coming up. We start looking beyond borders. And speaking of borders, now if you look at this map here, you can see what a huge or long border line we share with Botswana. Clearly going, it's something like 1,540 kilometers all in all. I read it up. So, and if you look at the Khaza Park, the Khaza obviously is a trans-border or transnational park, as we call it. Clearly, you see on the left there, Kaudum, all those places in Namibia. But then you also need the Lunga Lunga Park in Angola and so on. Here you can actually see how the animals move. These are mainly elephant routes, but gives you a good indication of Zambia, Zimbabwe, Botswana, Namibia, all being sort of thrown in together with this Khaza Park, and they're actually looking at a visa that if you've got a visa in Zambia, it automatically also applies to all the other countries that are part of Khaza. Now, going further down, you will actually see is the Klagadi Park. It's also a transnational park. In this case, shared between Botswana and South Africa, but basically bordering to Namibia. And if you have booked yourself into that park, then you can actually move through the border post and on the Namibian side. Now, having said this, in the past, you always obviously had to go through all the passport controls and whatever. And this week now, we saw something different because the presidents of Namibia and Botswana came together at Mamnunu, which is obviously further up north, but that's not the point. They actually decided that IDs, Namibian IDs and or Botswana IDs are sufficient to cross from one country into the next. Have a look at the video.
I am indeed honored to join my dear brother, Masisi, President of the Republic of Botswana, to officiate at this event, which marks yet another historic milestone in Namibia-Botswana bilateral relations. During our interactions over the years, my brother and I touched on the idea of using a national identity documents to travel between Namibia and Botswana. It is truly pleasing that as leaders, we can dream wonderful dreams and be around to bear the witness that these dreams come into fruition.
Let's make Namibia Botswana. Let's make Botswana Namibia. The citizens of Namibia, as I see them, Your Excellency, look ready and eager. The citizens of my beloved Botswana, in all shape and form, dresses of all codes, are ready. As we celebrate this historic achievement, let us continue to do our part in strengthening the relations between our two countries and peoples for the mutual benefit of all.
Right, and that was what it's all about. And I think it's a huge new development. And I'm wondering when next comes the point where we either have a passport which has a Southern African, SADC type passport, almost like the EU passport that makes it so much easier to move from one country on into the next one. So this obviously turns a destination into a totally new word for Namibians going to Botswana or Botswana people coming here. So very interesting development in terms of destinations. Right, and that's our destinations for today. Up next, we've got To The Point. Yeah, and To The Point today, we've got a very touchy subject. Touchy in as far as we obviously always welcome new ideas in terms of tourism. And one of those items has always been for many years now, the fact that you've got tour operators who were able to bring in motorcycle tours. But now, recently, this caused a huge uproar, and we actually wrote about it in the papers as well. But look at this video that actually was the cause of this whole uproar. Just have a look quickly.
So the water hole is right there. And we've got a motorbike squad that decided to camp here for the night, disturbing the rhinos.
Right, and that was obviously the video that caused the big uproar. But then I sort of drilled into the story and found out a bit more after a while. So if we look at this big map that I've brought you, quite clearly you can't read all of it, but those green ones and the yellow ones are all types of nature conservation and or conservancies. So you can see quite a lot of them. And on the northwestern side of Namibia, we obviously have the most. Now, the ones that are involved in this whole thing, specifically this time, if you look at the next map, I've sort of made a see there, I've drilled them in, they're quite close to Korigas, it's number 6, 7, and 15. And they're basically Grootfontein, Ubasen, Dorosnaos, and then also Soros is the 15 one. And anyway, so I looked into these ones, and now clearly Hannibal Tours goes there quite often. Now, if you look at the Hannibal Tours internet page, it actually looks very nice. And I met these people. They're very pleasant people. They're very convinced that they don't do anything to disturb nature in any bad manner. Mostly they are organized with older people, not necessarily the youngish people anymore. So they try and keep on the tracks, and they've got certain rules. If people don't stick with the rules, then their bikes are loaded onto the back of trailers. Here you can see in the evening, it's a dead normal, jolly group that enjoys it. And here I actually organized this photo from them, and it shows how these people clearly relaxed. And I suppose they disturb nature if you were strict about it, but this is what caused it. Here you can see them actually fixing their tires because they had quite a number of tire damages and also problems with their vehicles. And this is what actually caused them to stay here. You can see here they're working on the cement. That's an old house that used to be there. The foundation is still there. And they essentially didn't think that this would be such a big issue. But the fact is they were too close to the waterhole, especially if you speak to the game rangers, and I've spoken to quite a number of them. So it really became a big issue, but to them, there was a logical reason why they had to stay there, because they like they said to me, you know, Frank, we can't allow people to drive a motorcycle in a river at night. That's even worse. And I tend to agree with him, but they might have just stayed a bit further away from the water. But what was the bad part about all of this is if you looked at the outcry, if you looked at how angry the people were, they were now all angry with Hannibal. But the more I delved into it, I suddenly discovered, no, there's still some other video clips. And these video clips show, for example, Freshline. Now, if you look at the following clip quickly, we can play it and I can talk while it plays. Here you can see them. And this is part of Freshline Moto Adventure Club. It's an American outfit, whereas Hannibal is a Swiss outfit. And what turned out is I got a whole lot of WhatsApp on my phone now, where game wardens actually said that they were trying to speak to them, and they were actually trying to tell them, listen, boys, you can't be here. You should stick to the roads, and you can't camp so closely to the water. And these guys would hear nothing, and in fact became quite abusive, it seems. So this is really where the big difference comes in. But these guys were never mentioned. Freshline was never mentioned on any internet, on any WhatsApp group, or wherever the people had their big arguments. And so I checked out, or actually called up their internet page, and here you've got something totally different. We're on a mission to explore every continent in the world on motorcycles. Care to join? And if you do click on it, then you're subjected to a huge amount of questions, because they clearly first want to make sure that you are suited for what they regard as this once-in-a-lifetime experience. So if you look at their Facebook page, you can clearly see here, this is not about so much, it's obviously about nature, but it's less about the animals. It's more the personal challenge, how you grow, what you can do physically, mentally. So nothing wrong with the principle that they're selling. But once again, the problem is simply that they simply do not take the necessary precautions when it comes to animals. So when you look at one of their Facebook posts that they have here, you might not be able to make it out on the screen there now, but it actually says on the top, how close is too close. So if we now close up to the photo, then you will see on the next photo that actually there are bikes in the background. This guy is clearly sitting on a bike or wherever he's sitting on, and this elephant is clearly agitated walking through the middle. And this is so totally different to what we seem to, I've gotten a hold of a whole lot of photos of Hannibal, where the people clearly enjoy these animals. And here I don't have a choice but to believe, and this, by the way, dates back to 2020, but I have no choice but to believe that these guys are in for the adrenaline rush and see. So if you look at this boot camp, they reckon that if you do a boot camp in Namibia, then you really are properly prepared for any challenge in the world. And then they say there, you know, we like to get you ready to ride a diverse range of terrain, including sand, rough and rocky, gravel road and whatever. And it's further down, you can see it's all about wildlife handling. And that to me is a red flag, second to none. It's not about you handling wildlife. It's about you respecting wildlife and remaining away from it. So I just thought I'd bring this out simply because at the end of the day, I feel that there was an organization that seemed to be a bit more responsible, having to take the brunt for the whole lot of them. The question really is, and I spoke to the guys from say, the Rhino Trust. I spoke to a couple of other guys who are up there. Ultimate Safaris is quite involved with these conservancies. And no matter who you speak to, they say the rule number one is these animals need to be disturbed to an absolute minimum. They should, in fact, not be disturbed, full stop. And there's a huge difference whether you've got a game vehicle with a diesel engine running slowly but surely at a respectable distance, keeping away from the main routes, not disturbing the animals at their water holes, remaining away, and when they do their camps, they go back to the conservancy camps. So no wild camping like all of these guys do. So the argument is simply that they say motorbikes don't belong there. Yes, sure, people need to have their motorbikes, they need to have their fun, and they need to do whatever they do. But no, in this case, we're talking desert-adapted elephant and lions, we're talking rhino. All of these animals we're looking after, and these guys, according to the nature conservationists, have no regard for these animals. So there's now a working group that has been established to that end, and so clearly conservancies will be possibly awarded more rights, because what happens at the moment, anybody can drive through a conservancy. There's no entry control, there's no, when they leave, there are big signs that say you're not allowed to camp in the river, you shouldn't do this and you shouldn't do that, but at the end of the day, they have no power to actually enforce it. So clearly there's a big call on the Ministry of Environment now to really get this going and solve this problem. And I dare say that if we need to have certain areas which are mapped out and put aside for motorcycle tours, sure, we should do it. There's a place for them, but not in the conservancy where we're trying to look after our animals. So that's my opinion, but I thought I'd just give you the whole story, because at the moment on internet and all the posts that we saw, there's so different opinions about it. But the biggest thing is essentially, I think there should be a space for both, but apart from each other. Anyway, that's the end of our show today. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll be seeing you next week, same time, same place. Until then, remain healthy, look after yourself. Bye.